Support for Anderson Cooper 360 comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Home plays a big role in your life. That's why Quicken Loans created Rocket Mortgage. It lets you apply simply and understand the entire mortgage process fully, so you can be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/AC360. Support for AC360 comes from GoToWebinar, a trusted webinar platform with over 55,000 customers who have hosted over 2.3 million interactive web events to connect with their audiences. For more, visit gotowebinar.com/podcast.
President Trump calls his tax overhaul, in his own words, an historic victory for our people. Keeping them honest, the question is, which people is that exactly? John Berman here in for Anderson. Clearly the bill, which the president will sign next month, is a political victory for him and his party. And the simple fact he got it done at all fulfills in a broad sense a campaign promise, namely to make major changes on taxes. He did. So for him, it's a win, and yes, it is historic, putting him, for better or worse, in the company of tax-cutting presidents like George W. Bush and Ronald Reagan. As for who the other winners are and how that compares with who he promised the winners would be, namely middle-class Americans looking for lower rates and a simpler system, the picture looks more nuanced, and certain remarks by the president today suggest that he's okay with that. As you know from the campaign through the year, in fact, right up until the measure passed, everyone from the president on down sold the bill first and foremost as a boon for the middle class.
The focus is on middle-class tax relief. The focus is on directing that tax relief to the people in the middle and the people who are trying to get there, and that is why we put our emphasis on that tax relief for those people who are in the middle.
House Speaker Paul Ryan back in November, and here's President Trump over the weekend.
This is going to be one of the great gifts to the middle-income people of this country that they've ever gotten for Christmas.
Now, keeping them honest, though, the biggest thing we learned today from the president himself, that for him, the biggest factor, and those are his words, wasn't really the middle class after all.
Our plan also lowers the tax on American business from 35% all the way down to 21%. That's probably the biggest factor in this plan.
Probably the biggest factor in this plan. Would you know that from listening to his campaign promises and all the statements he and his surrogates have said since then? You can decide that for yourself. Certainly, middle-income Americans do get a tax break, just not nearly as big a tax break or as permanent as the breaks that wealthy Americans get, or businesses. The personal cuts expire. The business rates do not. Those are, after all, the biggest factor. And it's not just rate cuts. In the second presidential debate and throughout the campaign, candidate Trump appealed to middle-class voters by promising to end a tax provision that exclusively benefits the very, very rich, such as himself.
One thing I do is get rid of carried interest. One of the greatest provisions for people like me, to be honest with you. I give up a lot when I run because I knock out the tax code.
So that never happened. He didn't get rid of it. It wasn't in the bill. What is in the bill, though, are provisions that not only benefit certain businesses, but very, very certain businesses, just like the kind that the Trump and Kushner family run. And for the record, he made no secret of the fact that he wanted lower corporate taxes and got them. But it was only today that we learned what a prime motivation it was. The biggest factor, his words. We also learned this.
We didn't want to bring it up. I told people specifically, be quiet with the fake news media because I don't want them talking too much about it because I didn't know how people would. But now that it's approved, I can say the individual mandate on health care where you had to pay not to have insurance. Okay, think of that one. You pay not to have insurance. The individual mandate has been repealed.
He claims this as a victory. The question is, was it achieved, if not under false pretenses, then at least by subterfuge? And is that okay with you? CNN's Jim Acosta at the White House tonight. He joins us now. Jim, it was absolutely unequivocally a banner day for the president. He got what he wanted here. Do we know when the bill will actually arrive on his desk for him to sign?
Well, there are a couple of factors there, John. One is we do think that the president wants to sign it by the end of the week. I just talked to an official here at the White House who said that the hope is that he'll do it by the end of the week, but it may have to wait until after the new year. There are some arcane rules, legislative rules, that say if the president signs it before the end of the year, that may trigger some spending cuts that they don't want over here at the White House or up on Capitol Hill. So that's something that they have to sort through. Some of it depends on if they can get a government funding bill passed by the end of the week, and they still have to work on that as well. So even though the president and those Republicans here, it sounded like he was talking about not repealing Obamacare, but just repealing Obama, because there were so many things that they had wrapped into this tax bill. They are very, very ecstatic about what happened over here at the White House today, but they still have some things to sort out before they actually put pen to paper, John.
You know, Jim, I understand one person not at the White House today, not at the celebration ceremony, Senator Susan Collins.
Right.
Do you have any understanding of why that happened?
Nothing definitive from her office as to whether she skipped this event over here at the White House today because she's upset about what happened up on Capitol Hill. Essentially, she was promised by the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, that he would make every effort to get some Obamacare bills put in place that would shore up that program. And that did not happen. These so-called stabilization bills that are pending up on Capitol Hill, that did not happen. And she made no bones about it. She was not happy with that, although she did put out a statement with Senator Lamar Alexander saying that we understand this is going to be taken up next year. And as a matter of fact, Mark Short, who is the legislative director over here at the White House, told CNN earlier this evening that the president would actually sign some of these Obamacare stabilization rules, which may become very critical, John. As you know, the president, as part of this tax reform bill, signed a repeal of the Obamacare individual mandate. So that program, Barack Obama's signature legislative achievement, is going to be flailing somewhat in this new year because of that, and it is going to need that kind of assistance. The question is whether or not that's going to happen. You've heard this town called a swamp. It was more like the farm this week with all the horse trading going on. Keep in mind, Senator Jeff Flake is expecting a DACA bill signed in the new year as part of a deal to get his support for this tax cut bill. And so you may see the president coming under a lot of pressure from Republicans to honor these promises that the White House and congressional leaders made to these Republicans to get them on board for this tax cut bill.
All right, Jim Acosta at the White House. Jim, thanks so much. Perspective now from the two Davids, Axelrod and Gergen, both former presidential advisors. David Axelrod also hosts the Axe Files. David Gergen, this was really the first significant legislative victory for the president and the Republicans, and it's a big one. This is a big tax bill. In some ways, they're delivering on many of the promises they made. The significance tonight.
Well, first of all, it is the most positive moment that President Trump has had since his inauguration. This is a big, big win for him legislatively. It's one of those majorly kind of bills that presidents like to pass, and their legacy heavily depends on it. So I think we have to say appropriately and legitimately Donald Trump is doing what every president would do, and that is, proclaim victory and say it's massive and it's historic. That just goes with the territory. Having said that, it is extremely odd to have a president with this big a victory on a bill that is so unpopular. It's like the CNN poll has its 55% disapproval to the 30s on approval. So this is a big win for the president at the very time when his leadership is being questioned. He has a lot riding, a huge amount riding on now. Does the economy get better? Do we have high growth? Or do we see it sort of limping along, in which case, either you can judge that for yourself about what the political implications are.
David Axelrod, you wrote earlier today about all this. This is what you wrote. You can certainly argue whether the things that the President of the United States has done have been good or bad or in between. I have my thoughts, parenthetically, you write. But you can't argue they haven't been consequential.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the fact is this is a consequential bill. It's a major rewrite of the tax law. It does greatly reduce corporate taxes. It shifts the tax code a little bit more in favor of wealthy Americans. It is advertised, as David suggests, as something that will spur growth. We'll see the Fed and most experts suggest only modest growth and modest job gains from this. It's good for shareholders. But we'll see. All of that will reveal itself in the future. But it is a big policy shift, as these things often are. Certainly on health care, it's going to make a big difference. It's added some preferences, taken some preferences out of the tax code. So this is big. His sort of rapid deregulation of the environment, of consumer protection, of finance, huge. Pulling out of global agreements, very, very big. I mean, he is doing consequential things. I have doubts as to whether the consequences are going to be positive, but you cannot deny that this is an impactful piece of legislation, and he's had impact with some of his other policies.
And some of the impact came today, right? I mean, AT&T announced a $1,000 bonus to 200,000 workers. Comcast did the same. There was a bank that did it as well. You know, David Gergen, this is the type of thing that Republicans promised. If you give a big corporate tax cut, these corporations will put some of the money back. So at least today, it does seem like some of those corporations are doing so.
Well, that's true. And if you see a big stream of these corporations announcing that would be good news for the president and, frankly, good for Americans. So we have to say, let's see how it works out. I would point out that the Washington Post has a piece. Now, you can say, well, they're being just sort of surly, but they have a piece. They've interviewed people at the biggest corporations in America, top 10, and they find most corporations are planning to give their shareholders more of a break. Some will reinvest, but there are not very many saying they're going to create new jobs. Only a couple.
A bunch of surveys have said exactly just that. Today, there were examples of the other side, but who knows? We'll have to wait going forward. David Axelrod, to the point that David Gergen made about the unpopularity right now of this bill, 55% against it. It's curious, is this bill unpopular because the president's unpopular? And will those two things ever separate, or will they forever be married?
Certainly, if the president were more popular, his proposal would be more popular. And I will say this, that when I look back to the passage of the Affordable Care Act, it was not a popular piece of legislation. And we told our members when they voted for it, by next November, all the benefits of this will reveal themselves to people, and it will be much more popular, and it won't be the albatross you thought it was. Well, we lost 63 seats. Now, it is more popular today because the law actually has been enacted, but this is not. This is a big gamble for the president, for the Republicans, and it could be a big problem in next November.
Ax, let me ask you about Obamacare, because the president brought this up today. He said Obamacare has been repealed in this bill, which isn't actually true. The individual mandate is, though that could have a major consequence. I'm wondering, as someone who was part of passing Obamacare, what does this mean to you?
Well, look, anytime you're told that 13 million fewer people will have health coverage, that is a big concern. To me, it's less about the Obama legacy and more about whether people get the coverage that they need. It was odd that he said that, though, because the fact is the American people have made it very clear that they don't want to repeal the Affordable Care Act. And that was one of the reasons why he had such trouble passing that full-scale repeal as it was. So he's claiming more than what this bill actually does, but it does damage the Affordable Care Act. If I were him, I would stay away from the repeal language, but he wants to. He's so desperate to say, you said I couldn't do it, and I've done it, and here it is. And it's a good applause line in very partisan audiences, but it's not very good with the majority of Americans.
David Axelrod, David Gergen, thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Just ahead tonight, a member of Congress who thinks the FBI has it in for Donald Trump. We'll talk as well about a whole string of conspiracy theories now making the rounds. Plus, the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee draws a red line on the Russia probe and warns the president not to cross it.
Support for AC360 comes from GoToWebinar, the webinar platform that's hosted 2.3 million interactive web events with over 60 million views per year. GoToWebinar believes webinars are one of the best ways to interact with your prospects and customers, instead of business presentations or company websites. Turn your next presentation into a conversation with GoToWebinar. For more information, visit gotowebinar.com/podcast.
You can practically hear it through the Capitol Dome, the drumbeat of criticism of Russia Special Counsel Robert Mueller and the FBI. Republican lawmakers questioning the impartiality of his investigators and investigation, some calling for a special counsel to investigate the special counsel. One lawmaker who joins us momentarily goes further, accusing the FBI of actively trying to, in his words, stop Donald Trump from being president of the United States. Another lawmaker, Democratic Senator Mark Warner, is also speaking up. He took to the Senate floor late today in defense of the special counsel with a warning to the president. CNN's Jim Sciutto joins us now with more on that. Jim, what did Senator Warner have to say today?
A remarkably stern warning to the president and to those Republicans you mentioned who've been criticizing the special counsel. There's been great concern. I've been hearing it from a number of Democratic members on the Hill, House and Senate, that this is, in effect, laying the political groundwork for the president to fire the special counsel or perhaps pardon some of the people who've been charged by the special counsel. So Senator Mark Warner, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, drawing literally a red line in the sand. Have a listen.
I believe it is up to every member of this institution, Republican or Democrat, to make a clear and unambiguous statement that any attempt by this president to remove Special Counsel Mueller from his position or to pardon key witnesses in any effort to shield them from accountability or shut down the investigation would be a gross abuse of power and a flagrant violation of executive branch responsibilities and authorities. These truly are red lines and simply cannot allow them to be crossed.
Note there that he mentioned both the possibility of firing Robert Mueller and also pardoning some of the people, Michael Flynn, Paul Manafort, others who have been charged there. They would consider both of those, Mark Warner and others, an abuse of power by the president.
Jim, do we know anything about why Senator Warner decided to give this speech today?
We do, in fact. I mean, he told reporters, including our colleagues up on the Hill, Mano Raju, Jeremy Herb, that it's his concern that the president might use the holidays when Congress is out of town on vacation with their families as a window to, if not fire the special counsel, perhaps issue pardons. That may sound out there, but I'll tell you, John, I speak to a lot of folks on the Hill, and they are genuinely concerned by this.
All right, Jim Sciutto for us in Washington. Jim, thanks so much. Just a few moments ago, the White House did put out a response to Senator Warner. The key phrase from Ty Cobb: there is no consideration being given to the termination of the special counsel. Now, a congressional critic of the first magnitude who leveled a charge against the FBI we want to ask him about, appearing on a Fox News radio show referring to those text messages between the two FBI agents, Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan said this: I'm convinced now the FBI actively seeking with intent, actively trying to stop Donald Trump from being president of the United States. Congressman Jordan joins us now. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. If I can, I want to first ask you about something that Senator Warner said. He said there is a coordinated effort to discredit the Mueller investigation. Are you part of a coordinated effort?
I think the senator gave his speech today because of all the facts we've learned in the last several weeks. Facts like the DNC and the Clinton campaign paid for the dossier. Facts like Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, the text messages they exchanged. That's why he gave his speech today. It had nothing to do with the fact that he's worried about the president getting rid of Mueller. It had everything to do with all these facts that are coming out that go to the heart of this issue and disprove, frankly, the contention that the Democrats have had for a long time. I want to talk about the facts and the issues in a second. I'm asking about right now his charge that there is a coordinated effort.
Have you had conversations, or has your office had conversations with the White House about the Mueller investigation?
I have not called we just had Mr. Sessions, Mr. Rosenstein, Mr. Wray in front of us. I did not talk to the White House about what kind of questions I was going to ask. I based it on the evidence and the facts that have come out. How do you get around the text message?
Have you had conversations with the White House, not about the questions you asked, but about the Mueller investigation in general?
Well, I've talked with the White House about all kinds of things. We've had talks with the White House about tax policy. We have talks about welfare policy. We've had talks about Obamacare. Of course, we've had talks with the White House. But my questions in those committees was driven by the evidence we've received in the last several weeks, like the text message from Peter Strzok and Lisa Page says, where we can't afford to take the risk that the American people are going to elect Donald Trump. So we need an insurance policy. If that doesn't go to intent to have a plan to disrupt the election, I want to talk
about your argument here in a second, but I'm trying to get to the issue of coordination. You just said, of course, we talked to the White House.
John.
Of course, we talked to the White House about the Mueller investigation. No. But do you talk about talking points? Are there talking points on the Mueller investigation?
Of course not. But here's the coordination. The Clinton campaign and the DNC, now we know those were one and the same, paid the law firm who paid Fusion GPS, who paid Christopher Steele, who paid Russians to give him this dossier, get this dossier that was, we think, taken to the FISA court and was the basis for securing warrants to spy on Americans. The coordination between the Clinton campaign and Russians
I will get to this. I will get to the dossier and the FBI, your charges about the FBI in just a second, but I want to finish up on this issue of coordination.
Those are facts.
I want to get to the issue. I want to stay on the issue of coordination for 1 second.
I want to talk about the coordination we know. Here's the coordination we know.
Hang on. You've been on Fox News when you say that the FBI was, acting to keep Donald Trump from being president of the United States. Before you go on Fox News, do you talk to them? Do you talk to them about these claims that you will make?
I talk to my colleagues, I look at the evidence, and I talk with our press people who book us on your show, and we talk about the coordination that exists between the Clinton campaign and the Russians. Now think about this. We know for a fact the Clinton campaign paid Russians to do what? To influence the election. And yet we've had this month-long investigation by Bob Mueller with no evidence that President Trump worked with Russians in any way to coordinate
Congressman, hang on.
But we know the Democrats did.
President Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., had a meeting in Trump Tower where he was promised dirt on Hillary Clinton. That happened.
Yeah,
Donald Trump said it happened. So that happened. Hang on. Let me ask you now about what you're saying about the FBI, because I want to get to this. You say you believe there was a plot in the FBI to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president. If that's true, was this not the worst plot ever? The FBI director, days before the election, reopened the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails.
Yeah, because you got to remember the context at that time. Mr. Comey reopened it after he had done the exoneration letter, after he had went public with something that never before done, after he made the decision, not Loretta Lynch, after Peter Strzok ran the entire investigation and changed the exoneration from a criminal standard, gross negligence, to a non-criminal standard, extreme carelessness. After all that, everyone, remember the context when Mr. Comey does that. Everyone thought Clinton was going to win. This was like, oh, no big deal. He can do this with the Abedin and Weiner messages back and forth, those emails. He could do this because he thought they was going to win, that she was going to win.
Listen. Strzok was on the team that changed it. We know that much. We don't know whether he was the actual one who changed it. Again, I say to you, so you were suggesting that part of this plot to keep Donald Trump from becoming president included James Comey
I'm not suggesting that at all.
Of Hillary Clinton?
I'm just saying he reopened it a few weeks before the election.
Wouldn't that be a lousy way to plot defeating Donald Trump to reopen the investigation?
So back in October, you guys, before the election, you guys didn't like Jim Comey. Now you like him. I don't get the point. What I'm talking about is
it's not whether I like him or not.
How about focusing on the text messages last week? How do you dismiss the idea that Peter Strzok said we can't afford to let the American people decide who's going to be the next president? We need an insurance policy. How do you dismiss that?
I haven't dismissed anything. The only one who
doesn't that point to intent to have a plan to do that?
Excuse me. The only one who has dismissed Peter Strzok is Robert Mueller, who pushed him off of his own investigation.
No. Robert Mueller, but remember, he first put him on the team, John.
And then when he found out,
he put the guy who ran the Clinton investigation, who interviewed Mills, Abedin, who interviewed Secretary Clinton, who changed the exoneration letter from a criminal standard to a non-criminal standard, the guy who ran the Russian investigation, he put him on the team. And then when he kicked him off, did he tell anyone? No. When did we find out? Only when Strzok was when they were talking about bringing him in front of the Intel Committee. Only then did we find out about these text messages and why he was dismissed.
Are you questioning Robert Mueller, the special counsel's integrity here for the way he handled it?
I have not criticized Mr. Mueller, except I will say this. The one interaction I had with him prior to him being the special counsel was when he was FBI director. 3 weeks after the IRS scandal broke, he testified in front of the Judiciary Committee, and he could not answer one question about that investigation, even though it was the biggest story at the time. So my experience with Mr. Mueller wasn't a real positive one that one time.
Okay,
but I've not criticized him. What I'm criticizing is
criticized him right now. But hang on, Congressman. All right. So you're talking about Peter Strzok. You're talking about an FBI coordinated effort to defeat Donald Trump. I want to read you something that came out in a story this week in Vanity Fair. Quotes from a former FBI agent. It says, the FBI is anti-Clinton, period. This former FBI agent said, I have a lot of friends who worked the Hillary investigation, and they freaking hated Hillary's guts. So that's a quote from a former FBI agent. I haven't heard you discuss that.
That's kind of funny. One quote from Vanity Fair, anonymous source saying there was a few people who didn't like Clinton.
Rudy Giuliani,
who text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, both of them at the FBI. We have text messages that show this huge anti-Trump bias and some that point to intent to actually try to make sure Donald Trump wasn't the president. And you're quoting some anonymous source from Vanity Fair. Go ahead, but I don't think that compares to the text messages we have from Peter Strzok and Lisa Page.
All I'm saying is your concern about FBI bias seems partisan. You seem to have selective outrage.
No. The vast majority of the FBI are great people doing the Lord's work out there. I'm talking about the guys at the top. I'm talking about Andrew McCabe. I'm talking about Peter Strzok. I'm talking about Lisa Page. I'm talking about the guy over the Justice Department, top official of the Justice Department, Bruce Orr, who was meeting with the author of the dossier, Christopher Steele, who met with Glenn Simpson, Fusion GPS, the people who paid for the dossier, both before and after I'm talking about those individuals. That's where the concern is, not the rank and file folks who are doing a great job.
And I hear you talking about those individuals, and only those individuals. All I'm asking is,
they're
in your
the ones who ran the investigation. They're the key people.
In your oversight role in Congress. So if it came out that there were FBI agents in the New York field office, and there's been a lot of stories about agents in the New York field office who didn't particularly like Hillary Clinton, if it came out that they were sharing anti-Clinton messages, would that concern you as much?
Of course it would. Of course it would. But it's not the anti-Trump messages that bother me about Peter Strzok. Most of Mueller's team is anti-Trump. We know that. What concerns me is the intent to carry out a plan to disrupt the election because, as Mr. Strzok said, we can't afford to leave this in we the people's hands. That is a problem. And if it happened, and all the evidence seems to point in that direction, this is as bad as it gets.
We don't
John,
know.
This is scary stuff if it happened.
We don't know that Robert Mueller's
team... That's why I said if.
We don't know that Robert Mueller's team is anti-Trump. First of all, Christopher Wray, the head of the FBI, donated to Republicans. Is he anti-Democrat?
We're not talking about Christopher Wray. We're talking about the folks on the Mueller team.
You were talking about
Peter
bias.
Strzok.
You were talking about bias, Congressman. You said
I'm not saying bias is the biggest.
You just said to me Mueller's team is anti-Trump.
John, I said this. You got to keep it in. I said, look, if all we were focused on was anti-Trump, then there wouldn't be anyone left on the Mueller team. That's not my focus. I said this in committee to Christopher Wray. The focus is what Peter Strzok did, what he wrote. That's the concern. Rod Rosenstein,
the Deputy Attorney General, was appointed by President Trump, was appointed by a Republican, George W. Bush at one point. He has oversight over the Mueller investigation right now. Is he anti-Trump?
I wish what Rod Rosenstein would do is answer our questions.
But is he anti-Trump?
I don't know. Well, all I know is I wish he'd answer our questions, which he wouldn't do. I wish Mr. Sessions would answer our questions, which I wish Mr. Wray could answer our questions. I wish we could get the documents that we've requested at the Judiciary Committee that we're entitled to so the American people can get the answers. So you can get the answers even, John. That's what I want. We're not getting that. We're going to keep pushing. Andrew McCabe is scheduled to be deposed in front of the Judiciary Committee tomorrow, so we're going to be doing that tomorrow. We're going to keep digging to get the answers. But all I know is what's come out thus far looks pretty bad.
Was James
Comey, the DNC paid for the dossier
was James Comey part of a plot to keep Donald Trump from being president?
We'll find out. We'll find out. All I know is the text message from Peter Strzok to Lisa Page sure points to that being what looks like took place.
You think James Comey was part of an effort? It went all the way to the top of the FBI to keep Donald Trump from being president. Why then?
Here's what I know.
If that's true, why then did he come out again and reopen the investigation of Hillary Clinton's emails and never even tell us before the election about the investigation into alleged Trump collusion? If he was trying to keep Donald Trump from getting elected, don't you think he might tell voters that?
Yeah, we'll have to find out. But why did James Comey take over the investigation? Why did he go public? Why did he change the exoneration letter? Why did he let Cheryl Mills set in on Hillary Clinton's interview? There's all those things that took place in that investigation. We're trying to get to the bottom of those.
But you said the FBI is trying to defeat Donald Trump. All I'm saying is if you're going to make a statement that bold, wouldn't it just be logical for him to tell the American people he was investigating him before the election?
You'd have to ask Mr. Comey, and we're going to try to find that out. What I know is the text messages that came out last week sure point in that direction. And that's what I said. Well, and I think common sense says when you look at the history of Peter Strzok, when you look at what he said in those text messages, if that doesn't show intent.
You said was the FBI was part of an effort to stop Trump from being president of the United States. That's what you said.
Well, look at the full text message. He said, today in Andy's office, Andrew McCabe's office. So Andrew McCabe, deputy director of the FBI, Lisa Page, Peter Strzok in his office, talking about how they don't want Donald Trump to be president. We can't afford to take that risk. We need an insurance policy.
Mike Conaway, who's running the Russian investigation. Mike Conaway is running the Russian investigation, over in House Intel. A Republican says he's got no problem with Andrew McCabe now after talking to him for a full day.
Well, you know what? We're going to talk to him tomorrow, John. We'll find out.
Congressman Jim Jordan, thank you so much for being with us. Have a happy holiday, sir.
You bet. You too. Merry Christmas.
All right, joining us now, former FBI and CIA senior official Phil Mudd, Brian Stelter, host of CNN's Reliable Sources, former FBI Special Agent Asha Rangappa, and Matt Lewis, senior columnist for the Daily Beast. Matt Lewis, let me actually, Phil Mudd. Matt, I just wanted to say hi to you. Merry Christmas, Matt.
Hey, John.
Phil, though, I'm going to ask you the first question. What do you make of what we just heard from Congressman Jordan there?
Well, you mean after about 4 Tylenol? This is why people don't trust either Democrats or Republicans. They come and yell at us about what is relatively simple. Let me give you some facts. There's 35,000 people in the FBI. Dozens or hundreds of them are involved in the investigation. Are you surprised that some of them have views about either Hillary Clinton or the President of the United States? I'm not. In the politicized America, everybody has views. They should not have shared them on government computers, but of course they have views. Let's be clear here. A Republican-nominated former FBI director, Robert Mueller, runs the investigation. That investigation has been certified by a Republican Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, and the key senator on this, last I checked, is a Republican, Senator Burr. And you want to tell me that this is a biased investigation? Look, there's people who are going to have views on politics. They should have been removed from this because they discuss them in a government space. They're going to talk about them at home just as every single American does. That doesn't tell me this investigation is biased. And the fact that the people looking at this investigation are largely Republicans tells me this is nonsense from the Hill.
Right.
And I'll never pay attention to a Democrat or Republican talking about it.
We pay attention to you, Phil Mudd, and we're going to pay attention to everyone else after the break. Much more next.
Support for Anderson Cooper 360 comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, and your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/AC360. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLSconsumeraccess.org number 3030. Remember, to create an ad like this one, visit purewinning.com/CNN.
A moment ago, you heard from Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan and his theories about the FBI, which joined conspiracy theories and coup allegations on Fox News and elsewhere.
The vast majority of the FBI are great people doing the Lord's work out there. I'm talking about the guys at the top. I'm talking about Andrew McCabe. I'm talking about Peter Strzok. I'm talking about Lisa Page. I'm talking about the guy over at the Justice Department, top official of the Justice Department, Bruce Orr, who was meeting with the author of the dossier, Christopher Steele, who met with Glenn Simpson, Fusion GPS, the people who paid for the dossier, both before and after. I'm talking about those individuals.
You need breadcrumbs to follow some of those arguments. You know, Matt Lewis, I want to bring you into this conversation right now. I just don't think there's any question at this point that there are Republicans trying to discredit the Mueller investigation right now. I asked Jim Jordan, I tried to get him to say whether or not he coordinated that message with the White House. He says he talks to the White House. He's talked to the White House about the Mueller investigation, but he denied any coordination. Your thoughts?
Well, look, I think very clearly Donald Trump wants, and Donald Trump supporters want to discredit institutions that hold him accountable. They want to discredit the quote-unquote deep state. They want to discredit the media. The problem I have is that these institutions are going out of their way to help Donald Trump do that. And if you look at Robert Mueller, 6 of the 15 lawyers on his team were Hillary Clinton donors. You have the one tweet coming, from the guy having an affair who says we can't take that chance that Trump will get elected. You have the senior Department of Justice official who was meeting with the Oppo research team behind the Trump dossier. His wife, he didn't disclose, but his wife actually at one point worked for this Oppo firm. What you have is basically, I think somebody else on Mueller's team, I think at one point was a counsel to the Clinton Foundation. I mean, it is ridiculous that Robert Mueller has done this. I think to his team, he has helped Donald Trump in the process of attempting to discredit this investigation.
You know, Asha, what do you see here? I mean, do you think that this has somehow tainted the special counsel's investigation? Do you think there was a plot to keep Donald Trump from being elected president?
People need to understand exactly how investigations work. And I'm going to give you 3 points that your viewers can take into account. So the first thing is that everything that the FBI does happens in teams. So interviews, investigative techniques, always happens in teams of 2 or more. And it's precisely so that if anybody's integrity or honesty comes into question, there are always other witnesses who can attest to whatever happened. And I guarantee you that happened both in the Hillary investigation and with whatever's happening now with Mueller's. The second is that there are very strict legal standards for opening a case and for closing a case. So-and-so is an idiot is not a basis for opening a case. If it were, the FBI would have too many cases on its hands. You have to have a legal basis to open a case, and you have to articulate the facts. The last thing is that a case can actually not stay open for more than 6 months legally unless there are facts that support a violation of federal law or a serious threat to national security. Now, the Mueller investigation, he took it over. It started in June 2016. It is now December 2017. You do the math. So these are the facts. Jim Jordan should know this. And if he doesn't, then he shouldn't be on the Judiciary Committee. But if he really wants to get to the bottom of it, he should read the rules.
You know, and Brian Stelter, again, this is not the only person delivering this type of message. You have other members of Congress doing it, and you have a lot of people on TV right now trying to discredit the Mueller investigation, particularly on Fox News. I just want to play you a little bit of one of the things that we heard last night.
Well, I think they're going to say, what was his intent, right? Because that's exactly what former FBI Director Comey said when he was letting Hillary Clinton off the hook. And his intent, regardless of whether it was an assassination attempt or whatever, was definitely something. Whoa. Well, no, I'm just saying, we don't know what it was. When you say we've got to make sure that this guy, doesn't get in at all costs, what does that mean? So I'm saying there's a spectrum of what does it mean. But one thing that we know for sure is that he was plotting in an election against a candidate, and there's FBI fingerprints all over this.
Assassination attempt, Brian Stelter, coup d'etat, other words that we've heard on that network?
Yeah, Fox says that particular moment with Kevin Jackson has been addressed. But I think of this as a trifecta, as a triangle. There are Trump allies in the media all over Fox News discrediting the investigation, then GOP lawmakers like Jim Jordan, and then Trump himself and his aides. The interview with Jim Jordan is so striking because he doesn't seem to want to know what really happened before Election Day. He doesn't seem to want to know what Trump campaign aides may or may not have done. He doesn't seem to want to know if President Trump is somehow compromised. It's as if, John, we are all out in the woods and we can see somewhere in front of us is a fire, a burning fire. We can't quite reach the fire, but we smell the smoke and we see the smoke. And there are these folks in right-wing media and near the White House who are saying, don't look at that fire. Look over there. Look in the opposite direction. And actually, beyond that, let's lay off the firefighters. Let's not even have the fire get extinguished. That's what's so disturbing about this moment.
Yeah, but these aren't, I would just say, I think that's a valid argument, but these are not crazy things to bring up. When Robert Mueller, who is highly respected, has a team that consists of only like 15 people or less, and almost half of them have donated to Hillary Clinton.
Which means half of them didn't. But more importantly, these people who are doing this investigation, if all you ever talk about is how evil and how tainted this probe is and how it's out to take down the president, you're not saying it, Matt, but they're saying it every hour on Fox.
These institutions are helping, whether it's the FBI or the media, I would argue, are helping Donald Trump discredit these institutions. Well, that's very bad for America.
Obviously, discussion isn't going to stop tonight. Thanks, everyone. I do wish we had more time, but coming up, the latest on the deadly train derailment in Washington State and the amazing story of three heroes. Soldiers just happened to be driving by and risked their lives to help the strangers who were trapped in this unimaginable scene.
Hello there, I'm Alicia Malone, host of the Filmstruck podcast, a show made by film lovers for film lovers. Each episode, I sit down with the creative people behind today's movies to talk about their work and why they wanted to make movies in the first place. Subscribe today and listen wherever you get your podcasts. Bye!
Amtrak is apologizing for the high-speed train derailment in Washington State that killed 3 people and hurt 100. The co-CEO called it unacceptable, saying, quote, "We are terribly sorry to the people that are involved." At least 24 people are still hospitalized. Tonight, we want to bring you the story of 3 other people, soldiers who just happened to be driving by and risked their lives to help strangers. First, Kyung La joins us with the latest on the investigation. Kyung.
Well, John, you can see that Interstate 5 is now open. That is because all parts of this train that derailed have now been moved off the freeway. They are going to be looked at. The black boxes are now at the NTSB lab. They are being analyzed. Investigators that we are told at the very last news conference that they have not yet been able to interview the staff of the train. They hope to learn much more there. We're also getting word tonight that the governor of this state says that Amtrak has committed to pay for everything, medical costs, costs, the damage to the freeway, everything that is as far as response, all of that's going to be covered by Amtrak. And you mentioned, John, that we're also now tonight hearing many more stories about the heroes who risked their lives to save passengers they simply never knew.
I hear a loud noise, and I look up and I see the train, and it's hitting the concrete barrier, and as it hits the concrete barrier, it gives way, and the train just topples.
I told my wife, oh my goodness, that's a train wreck. That's a mass casualty situation.
3 soldiers driving on the highway, all from different directions, now in the middle of an unfolding disaster.
There's roughly 7 to 10 individuals that had been ejected from the train, and these individuals laid right under where the one of the rail cars was hanging. And so my thought process was, if this rail car falls, it's going to land right on these individuals. My main focal point was this hanging train. I ran to the semi, and I just managed to just kind of grab onto whatever I could and shimmy up this semi. And I went from the semi to, there was an upside-down rail car that I kind of used as a bridge.
So this tilted car, you're making your way on an unstable, tilted rail car.
You know, it was really chaos in there. It looked like a typhoon had hit in there. There was luggage everywhere. There was personal belongings everywhere. Individuals were everywhere.
A father and a baby trapped in the bathroom. A woman pinned under the seats. All the while, the train car on its side. Did you feel this train could go at any minute?
I felt, there was a couple times inside that I felt dizzy, and I thought it was going in because I actually thought it was going to go, and we're going down. So I gathered myself. We got to get those people off that train.
These soldiers, 2 who have deployed to Iraq, are medics trained to treat fellow soldiers wounded on the battlefield. Only this time, the Americans who needed help were right here at home.
The fact that there were individuals, the community was in need, it just felt like the right thing to do at the time. You have 2 options: to either lay aside and let what happens, or to take action and try to do something about it.
And they decided to do something about it. They definitely took action. And, John, we did ask them, does it feel strange to be back here? Because it's the first time that they had been back since Monday morning. They all said that it is very eerie. This is, they believe, going to have a lasting impact on them. John.
Wonderful people. Awful, but it could have been much, much worse. They helped so many. Kyung La, thanks so much. Coming up, breaking news, more fallout from the Russia investigation that could keep one of President Trump's ambassador nominees out of the job. What we're learning tonight about Michael Flynn's former deputy, K.T. McFarland. That's next.
I'm Lawrence Scott with NBA Sound System, and our latest episode here during the holidays is chock full of Southwest flavor as we hear from Mavericks rookie Dennis Smith Jr., plus dive deeper into a Q&A with longtime Slam Magazine staffer Svi Chwerski. Plus, Pelicans broadcaster Joel Myers joins us from New Orleans. Subscribe to NBA Sound System on Apple Podcasts, and to stream the show, visit our homepage at nba.com/soundsystem.
Breaking news tonight, confirmation may be in serious jeopardy for one of President Trump's ambassador nominees, K.T. McFarland, who used to be former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn's deputy. Flynn, as you know, has pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI about his conversation with Russia's ambassador and is now cooperating in the Russia investigation. CNN senior congressional correspondent Manu Raju joins us now with the latest. Manu, what are you learning about K.T. McFarland's chances now of getting confirmed?
Well, senators in both parties are telling me, John, that, in fact, K.T. McFarland is going to be sent back. Her nomination will be sent back to the White House as soon as this week when they wrap up the session here in Congress, largely because of concerns that she was not straight with the committee when she testified earlier this year about those contacts that she had with Michael Flynn. She was the deputy of Michael Flynn's when she served in the National Security Council. Now, when Robert Mueller unsealed this plea agreement with Michael Flynn earlier this month, it disclosed that there were some conversations that Michael Flynn had with an unnamed senior transition official. Now, that senior transition official we now know was K.T. McFarland. And what we now know is that, according to that document, that she and Michael Flynn discussed conversations that Flynn would have with the Russian ambassador Sergei Kislyak about sanctions at the time that then the Obama administration last December was issuing sanctions. Now, when when Katie McFarland came before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee earlier this year, she was asked directly about conversations that she may have had with Michael Flynn about Sergei Kislyak. And in written correspondence from Cory Booker, the senator from New Jersey, she said she was not aware of any of this correspondence. Now, after this plea agreement came out, Democrats and some Republicans, too, said she needs to clarify her testimony before they decide to move forward with her nomination. And I'm told, John, from senators in both parties that she has yet to clarify her testimony. So what does that mean? That means they're going to send her back to the White House. The White House is going to have to make a decision about whether or not to renominate her. And I am told that her chances of being confirmed are exceedingly grim until she does so. So it sounds like she probably is not going to get this job to become the ambassador to Singapore.
Manu, she wouldn't be the only nominee to face problems because of alleged Russia ties, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, earlier this fall, Sam Clovis, who was nominated by President Trump to be a senior level, take a senior level position at the Department of Agriculture, had to abruptly withdraw from that position after it was revealed that he had contacts with George Papadopoulos. Of course, we now know that Trump foreign policy advisor on the campaign, who had tried to set up this meeting between Trump and Putin and was in contact, apparently, with Sam Clovis. Now, after it was revealed, this was revealed during this agreement in which Papadopoulos had pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI. Clovis made the decision they did not want to have to answer questions about this under oath before senators and deal with the confirmation proceedings that he believed would become a big distraction. So he abruptly withdrew as well. So two nominees, John, potentially being done because of the Russian investigation, not to mention several other nominees who Trump has had to pull back or have been rejected for other reasons, unusual for a president having a party in his own power here in the Senate, John.
All right, Manu Raju up on Capitol Hill. Thanks, Manu.
Thanks, John.
Coming up, a big day for President Trump. Not only did he score his first major legislative victory, he also got to indulge in what seems to be one of his favorite pastimes, collecting praise for himself. The latest from the White House next.
Hey, before you go, we wanted to let you know that we just launched the ability for anyone to advertise on CNN podcasts. You're just a few clicks away from reaching millions of people in a way that you never have before. Advertise for a business, event, or kick off an awareness campaign for your brand. Start today at purewinning.com/CNN. Integrating podcasts into your marketing mix has never been easier. We'll even tell you how to save 15% on your CNN campaigns for the rest of 2017. Go to purewinning.com/CNN to get started.